Hey everybody, it's Nick. Due to popular demand, I guess one guy, Scott Jones, if you're out there listening, thanks a lot for listening to our show, and here's your request for the rest of D&D Ramblings. So here you go, unedited, and just us being ourselves.
In a world of sidekicks, oh shit, I should have wrote it down. In a world of sidekicks, be a Benny, not a short round. There it is.
There we go.
That's your takeaway tonight. Be a Benny, not a short round.
There's another shirt we need to make.
Be a Benny, not a short round.
We need to make the Liquid Shits t-shirt.
The Liquid Shits
Oh.
Be
t-shirt.
a Benny.
Be a Benny.
And there was another one.
There was another one.
Pick and choose video.
Pick and choose video.
Store.
Yep. We don't have it, you don't get it.
This sounds like a story for another episode. But anyway, we are signing off. Have a good night.
Ba-bam.
Here's when you can edit in. And I would do anything for love.
It's staying. No, it's still recording.
Anything for
Great.
love.
I karaoke'd Meatloaf in the past. I know what I'm doing.
But I won't do that. No, I won't do that.
I lie for you, and that's the truth. Do 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 do. Do anything you ask me to. Love karaokeing me some Meatloaf, especially after I've had a few. Oh, it's on. Love it. Although Big Balls is still amongst the top priority.
I've got big balls. I've got
Big balls. I don't care who you are. That's a fantastic song.
He's got the biggest balls of them all.
I had the distinction of hearing Nick sing that one, and I'm sure I about pissed myself with laughter. He was spot on. It was great. In fact, he inspired me to try to sing that more often and really getting that accent into it. And I do it probably about every night I go out. That's usually one of my warm-up songs these days.
Nice.
That's one you can sing and have fun with, but while you're still getting, when you're not quite drunk enough yet to truly enjoy, you can still get into that one. Because you got to get up there and you really got to get into, his name escapes. He's like, but I'm ever upper class high society. You really got to get into it. As a matter of fact, the strip club American Dream, they do karaoke nights on Sunday, and I don't know if I've told you guys this story, but they had the strippers, they'll be up there dancing to people karaokeing.
Whoa.
And that was my song that I sang, and I felt so bad for her because that was about the most unsexiest song you could sing to ask somebody to dance to. I've got big balls. She just kind of almost after a while, she didn't even try anymore. She was just kind of like almost kind of head bobbing, listening because everyone else was just digging it because we're all a bunch of drunken perverts, just laughing at me. And she was just kind of almost like head bobbing at the stage at this point. And she's really, I actually gave her, I think, like a $10 tip because I felt so fucking bad for her because no one was going to tip her while I was singing that,
How do I strip? Well, I would have kicked her off the stage. But that's how we differ. Like, you're a bad stripper. Go away.
No, you know what? I defy you to find any chick that could dance to Big Balls, in a stripper format and make it look right. And
That's
I'm
a
just
stripper you gotta marry
to tell you
and
about
divorce
those.
in 2 years.
That's, it's like that. There's no dancing that.
After you've gotten herpes.
I tell you what, though, the gals, the gal running the bar loved it so much. My cokes were free the rest of the night. She loved it. Granted, they were Jack and Cokes. She probably wouldn't have, but I had to drive home that night. It's like, all right, another Coke. She's like, you kidding? That was great. I'm not charging you the rest of the night. You can have all the Coke you want.
We got a delay on the
And I'm pretty sure that was another night I ended up doing a Meatloaf, which again, different stripper, couldn't dance to it. And I think it was the "I Lie for You" song. I was just do anything you ask me
That would be hard
to.
to dance to. That would.
Any
Big
of them.
balls, you need to throw yourself into it and do something.
maybe somebody who's a better gyrator or has a really nice ass to twerk with. Maybe you can kind of get that to go, but otherwise, I don't know. There's just not a lot of that song to give.
She just fucking walked up behind her, started dry humping her while you were singing, ramming your pelvis into her. Put on a real show.
I'll remember that for next time.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Because you know what? I did have enough. I tried in my head of many drunken swirls at that point, because this is one of those nights that I went there. I was dropped off and no, it wasn't. That was a different night. But the point is, I went there. One of these times, I was drinking enough that in my head, hitting a 90s R&B song was like a great idea to get them to dance to. And I can't even remember the guy's name, but he always wore like white business suits, and I have to look at. But yeah, and
What's
so
his
I,
name? Palmer.
hold on.
Robert Palmer.
No.
You talking about Robert Palmer?
No, he's a brother. It wasn't a white dude. Who sings the song Nobody? Let me Who sings the song Nobody? He was like a flash in the pan. I was too high for 95
to double aught to know anything that was going on.
Well, this was like, in this, because it kind of sucked because the RB craze had kind of taken over the radio, and then Keith Sweat, that's the guy.
That name. That's okay. I miss a lot of pop culture from that time.
But you're not missing a whole lot though. But my girlfriend. My girlfriend at the time was really into that whole R&B thing, and so she so I had to listen to him all the time because I was so busy letting her do what she wants so I could do what I wanted. Kind of you got to give a little, you got to get a little. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so that was like one of the ones she would play all the time, and I don't know if I've heard it since the '90s, and I'm pretty sure I butchered it, but in my head I thought I was doing it pretty good because Keith Sweat, he has this real low, and he kind of does this thing right before he starts singing. So it's kind of like, it sounds a little like this. I want to see, I want to be as... And I'm sure I was doing that at the time, and I thought I was doing a fantastic job, but I thought she was actually kind of grooving and getting a little dancey. It was almost like the Jay and Silent Bob head sway. But it's all coming back to me here now. Cool It Down. That was one of the ones I sang that the chick got into. Cool it down. You better slow it down. Oh, she was digging that. Slow, watch out. I wonder if they're still doing that. We should all go. Somebody will need to drive me to and from those so I can get my drunk ass up there singing these horrible songs.
That's what Uber's for nowadays.
I saw on the news there were 43 DUIs last month. I'm like, how in the hell? With Lyft?
Oh, that seemed like a small amount.
And Uber. No, it is small. It's gone down a lot, but still. You've got Lyft and you've got Uber.
Yeah, some people just don't like to admit that they can't drive when they're drinking.
There is, yeah.
I was like that.
I was like that
I've
too.
known that I drove and I shouldn't drive.
Now I'm like.
Then I had one night where I really shouldn't have been driving, and since then I've gotten a lot more responsible.
When my car showed up in my mom's house. At my mom's house, sideways.
He said, "In your mom's house." I'm like, dude.
Sideways in the driveway, and I don't remember how the hell I got the car that way. There might have been a problem for me.
I'm lucky that I behaved. I was usually the designated driver for that very reason, because I knew that I would not have the common sense to think that I should be getting, that I should be getting a taxi.
Driving on 370, and you know where the Target is there in Twin Creek? Right along the highway there. Well, there's a big retaining wall in it. It goes like that. And I was driving home from the bar to Vermillion, and I almost went over that edge. That was the night my car ended up sideways in the driveway. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. From that point on, I was like, I don't care if you're sleeping, come get me. Yeah.
But yeah, Arnie's absolutely right. There are some knuckleheads out there that, yeah, they're just too headstrong to think that they don't need a ride home, no matter how much they've been drinking. And I had a guy I pretty much had to. We ended up. Holy crap! Yeah, this is like taking the Wayback Machine to when I was a security guard at the casino. And there was no reason not to, because the casino would provide free cab rides. All you had to do was ask. It was like it's not like it cost you a cent. You just had to ask. Say, hey, I've been drinking. I don't trust myself driving home. Can you get a cab? And we paid for it. And there were
I didn't know
people.
that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, there were still people that because I think it was a lot of the times it was.
Well, I used to get wasted and went to the casinos to eat.
Oh yeah, people did that all the time. But they
midnight special.
Somebody should have seen and realized what shape you were in and would have offered you, hey, how about a cab ride home on us? Because I don't know how hard they advertised it, but all the regulars knew it well enough. But but if we saw somebody, and I think they still do that. The last I heard to this day was if you don't feel it, tell them they'll pay for the cab ride home just to make sure you get there. It's a good publicity thing for them, so it's something that they're not advertising enough. They should be. Jesus, I act like we're still on the air.
I would go there and get wasted all the time had I known that.
And a lot of people did. But we had some knuckleheads that just refused, and we could tell there were some that were just stink out, stupid drunk. I mean, there were guys that they were drinking when I got there after a 10-hour shift, and I'm leaving, and they're still drinking, and then this happened that one night. I had just gotten out of uniform, and usually you pull 10-hour shifts at the casino, in security guard work. And yeah, this dude would just drink like a fucking skunk all day. And one night he decided he was certain that he was okay and safe to drive home. He ended up tackling this guy, and the police ended up hauling his ass away. Just some people are just hard headed or just don't have that mental capacity when they're drunk to think that maybe I should get her out. We've all had that ex, I'm sure.
She would, I kept track of her menstrual cycle, because she did. And the only reason I did it was so that I knew which weeks, if she drank, would be a fucking nightmare. Because if she drank during one of those weeks, she was fucking a fucking nutcase. Wow. And, so like, if I... playing like World of Warcraft. She was in one room, I was in the other. She needed to borrow cigarettes from me. We fucking called a dog in, and we took a pack of cigarettes in Silver's collar. She would call him in there, and he'd take her the cigarettes.
It's rather clever, really.
That's actually not a Dog's just like, son of a bitch. Fuck, how did I get roped into this shit?
I need to teach Nessie to make me some Jack and Cokes and bring them down to me. That'd be great. Actually, I figured I got a temporary solution around that too, because with the remodeling downstairs, the fridge is in a new spot and it's closer to the couch, and I can almost get it from where I'm sitting. I still have to kind of reach and finagle it a little. But I was doing so well with that, I actually bought like a second bottle, and I keep it downstairs now like a fucking drunk, so my Jack and Cokes are in easy reach. I don't think I have a problem yet, but I gotta, I do got a question at least. And I tell you what, and maybe it's an example of I'm getting older and turning into a bigger sissy boy because of it, but my last niece in the family turned 21 finally. So we all went out and so she was finally able to go out and, celebrate drinking with the rest of them. And, we were doing like birthday shots, and she was, she felt like she was going to be a serious lightweight, which I question that myself, because I think she's potentially the most addicted prone of the bunch. She's the one I worry about is going to get a gambling addiction problem, because she loved Camel Up so much. She loved gambling so much in that game. I was getting a little concerned for her. But anyway, different setup. But anyway, so we went out, we were doing these birthday shots, and they came up, and celebrated a round of Southern Comfort. And I'm like, holy crap, that stuff's bizarrely tasty. And I don't know why, but I liked it. I was like,
What stuff?
Southern Comfort. I'm not a shots guy, I'm like a whiskey, bourbon, and Coke kind of a guy, things like that. But for whatever reason, I was really digging that Southern Comfort.
That stuff's really good with like orange Hawaiian punch.
And I could see that, I
It's
didn't.
delicious.
I don't know if that was a sign I'm turning into an old sissy man or what, because I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I don't think I would have liked it, but
Yeah.
nowadays, I thought it was rather tasty. I liked it so much when Hy-Vee was having their big sale on alcohol the other week. I bought one just for like when the nieces come over, we can all drink together now in the game room. That's like, this is going to be great. Me and the nieces are going to get blitzed in the back. You guys all do your thing up here. So that was a weird realization I came up with the other week, was that Southern Comfort. I like it. What's going on?
Fantasy football. We both have them. You have them too?
I have them in our league.
This is Arnie and I not giving a shit about fantasy football.
I thought it was funny when you posted it. I laughed out loud so hard. He's like, shit, I forgot about the fantasy football draft.
Football draft, right?
And I'm sitting there and I go,
Fun to go. Like,
I
I know it's on
spit
Sunday.
everything out of my mouth.
I don't know what day I realized it. Monday or Tuesday. God, I fucking forgot.
And you know
it was
what?
like 2 days before.
Your life has been affected this
Friday
percent.
night, I'm like, yeah, fantasy football. Like, it's Sunday. I'm like, all right, I'll be there.
Such a silly waste of time, fantasy football. I don't get it, man.
Did Adam make it?
Yes.
Adam made it,
Jason
but
did.
Jason didn't. He got D20.
He got D20'd.
Yep. That's how he got.
That's how he got his team picked.
He just D20'd his way through it.
John,
When
no,
I was doing
D20.
it,
John
I was showing
D20'd
up,
it.
I was gonna fucking pick a fucking. I was gonna pick somebody by the first name or by the fucking nationality of their name. That was my plan. I was gonna fucking draft somebody for him with a theme. I forgot about it.
And that's precisely why I wouldn't get involved either. Because again, I'd feel like such a dipshit because my whole list would be nothing but Packers. It's like I'm a Packer fan for life. For, fifth generation, everything. I love what I was like. To me, I'd feel like I was betraying my team if I started drafting players from other teams. I can't do it.
When you start rooting for Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell?
That's why I didn't really want to do it this year because I'm like,
I
I just want to watch football on Sunday.
I love football in
But
general.
then-
It's the only sport I like, really.
But then Sony would have been like, oh, so I win it last year, and you guys you don't want to play anymore. So I'm like, shit, I guess we got to do it. And I was gonna tank John's league, but I didn't want to get endless amounts of shit the entire time.
Again, this is Arnie and I not giving a remote shit about fantasy football or these apparent problems that spring forth
I hate
from it.
fantasy football season because we'll go to John's for like first 10 or 15, 20 minutes and talk about fucking fantasy football. I'm just like,
God damn it.
what?
Some nights it's the whole night.
Arnie, just start showing up 20 minutes late for the season. Save yourself the grief.
Sometimes it's the whole night.
Oh,
Like you'll play for 20
See.
minutes, and the other 6 hours is bullshit.
see, that would drive me up a
You,
wall.
you sit there and you talk about it, and then you go, Tom Brady is a bunch of shit. And then Kobe, the ultimate fucking Tom Brady cocksucker, will yell at you for like 30 minutes.
Probably for the better. I don't really know if it's just Colby.
you hate playing, but
He's funny. It's just like at the fucking draft, he's like blowing ass and trying to kill Matt and John's dad the whole time. Oh, don't worry, I drank some Metamucil today. My colon's clean. The whole time. Sounds like he's gonna shit his pants.
This sounds like a story too. He sounds like he has bowel troubles.
They were always like, we should record this. We should record this and make it a podcast. And I was like, record what? I'd be editing a 6
We have
hour
10 minutes.
every week
10 minutes.
for a 10-minute
10
show.
minute game.
if you had to stop for some sort of
Cut that racist tirade out. Gotta cut that one out.
Yeah, you kind of gotta behave.
When you're recording a podcast, you gotta.
Granted, your show might be popular, but for all the wrong reasons, you know.
I don't like to censor you, but damn, we gotta have some listeners.
You don't want to be like that nappy-headed hoe guy, you know. No, not like I think 10 people listened to that show before he had that riff.
Randall took the fucking paladin and started out as the fucking super right-wing conservative.
Well, you had plenty of racist characters in your history, you know. I mean, you know, like the scarf or whatever. He's a dirty Jew. He's a dirty kraut. That's like all I remember of the scarf is his I am the scarf, or he's a dirty Jew. He's a dirty kraut. He did have a theme. Oh my god. I'm like, thank God Nick never had a Chinaman show up on that game.
That's why I like this game a little bit better, because we actually play.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, yeah, I go through a lot of writing for you guys to spend 6 hours bitching about Tom Brady and sports. You know, I wouldn't do it. It's like, fuck yeah, I'm done. I put a lot of work into my writing and research.
When it's not football season, it's half an hour about the gym. The drama at the gym. Who's not letting him play the music, or who's playing the wrong music, or who's blowing who, or...
Sounds like, yeah, I'm not missing a whole hell of a lot. I think I was invited to this group, and, well, maybe it's for the better I'm not. I might have left rather jaded eventually.
It's not like...
I do come to play, that's my...
It's not like a my group. It's not that bad.
It is a lot of fun.
It's not a my group. That's a great compliment. It's not a my group, all right?
It's not silly. It's not taking a lot of things too seriously.
So the first time Arnie came up, right? And I can tell he's annoyed as shit because we're not playing. He's just like, "What are we playing? What are we?"
And I'd probably be just. I might have been a little more polite, but I probably would have never come back after that night.
Most actually got a fucking Colby and fucking Jason fighting. Yep.
I didn't want to bring up specific names over the podcast. Well, I guess Mike Palmer. That's on Arnie. So I try not to use any specific names.
Palmer
But
listens to it.
yeah, if he actually listens to it, which great, you know, the worst he could do is bitch about it, and people start listening. Because I'm sure anyone he'd bitch about it to would probably agree and would listen to our episode just to hear it. Because Vogler, Chris Vogler, you remember the redheaded nut that he is? I still run into him to this day. In fact, he was in one of my games last year at the new con. Yeah, you know, it's like we brought up Palmer problems 3 or 4 different occasions before I had to get on his ass and tell him, dude, we're trying to play or shut up. Guy has a problem with
You know what
talking too
sucks?
much.
Who's that? Is that Tevin Coleman? Yeah, I benched him.
Dude. That's right. Here I am, not giving a shit. You just keep on playing, buddy. Oh, did you get benched? That's some tough titty for that kitty, isn't it?
It would have been neat that his mom was a D&D player.
I don't remember she was a D&D player, but she painted miniatures like a fucking demon.
D&D player, because it came from her where you fucking doused the sheep or the pig and fucking boil and set it on fire and set it down the fucking cave.
You're right, that was,
No, I only talked to her once, but yeah, that would have been neat to sit. When I was that age, 15, and sitting in on like a role-playing group with like fucking 50-year-olds. Probably some sort of weird, nasty orgy that I'd never want to, you'd have to bleach your eyes out.
No, you're right. She did look like she was a freak in her younger years. Hell, she's probably still a freak today if she's still alive.
She's about 80. She's an old
Yeah,
lady
you know.
with a bunch of 90-year-olds.
I should ask Chris, oh, how's your mom?
Terrible,
Next time I see him, how's your mom, Chris? But yeah, because that's what I remembered the most about her. She could paint fucking miniatures like no one's business, and she was fucking good at it. And I know she was like had a side business for it, because she had like awards and everything from various cons she went to, and you know she was a vintage geek, much like my own mom, albeit a very different kind. But yeah, you're right. She was. I think I did have that one conversation with her, and I've seen all the miniatures, and they were pretty cool. Half the time, though, I wanted to break my foot off in Chris's ass, just because just some days he was plenty annoying.
He never annoyed me.
Kidsman was just
Not counting fucking Anton the Big One.
Well,
Paul. Was there a guy named Paul? Was that one fucker's name? He only showed up.
he had several fuckers there. You're gonna be more specific.
Which fucker are you?
Yeah, which fucker are we talking about here?
Spank, I think.
You were gonna
So we made
spank
up
some
characters
fucker?
to spank. Yeah, we were talking about making a character just to foil a player character. I think it was to spank that guy, like disable him and spank him, literally. Just
Was
spank
he the
him.
one who came up with the High Kalugi and was obsessed about his German ancestry?
I do not know. I don't
Because he
remember that guy.
went to Germany
say
during
he
his
was
military
blondish.
years and kind of seemed kind of quasi.
Blonde, light brown hair. I don't
He,
remember.
you know, yeah.
I only played with him 2 times because he was a fucking prick.
I think I know who you're
Kidsman was
talking about.
annoying.
Kidsman was.
Really annoying.
Kidsman and Mike, I think, had had homosexual tendencies between those two that they never dealt with. Because the way those two went at it, because they were roommates and everything, and because he was living up there with Kenny at one point, or he and Mike were living, together at one point, just separate beds, of course, in the same attic, though. And I'm pretty sure those two had like I said, homicidal issues that they never did resolve. Because those two would fucking fight like an old married couple sometimes, and they would get mean about it. Mike would end up doing, and half the time it's Kenny's own fault, or sometimes just a bad dice roll. I don't remember Mike intentionally killing Kenny beyond the fact that he made godlike people besides, but Kenny didn't have enough common sense half the time to not fight his godlike characters or do something that indignant that would get him killed over it. And I remember one night, something must have been simmering in the pot already, because Kenny just lost his just absolute shit one night. And you'd have to know that I'm sure you've seen his type. He's like this tall, skinny, four-eyed dude that if he couldn't see, if he didn't have the stick-ass glasses on him.
Birth control fucking god, those glasses.
Oh, it's if any of you guys ever watched like Trailer Park Boys, he's a lot like Bubbles, pretty
Okay.
much.
I've never watched
big
it, but I've seen
googly
the guy-
eyed looking dude,
I've
with
seen
his
the guy on
glasses.
the
And he
cover
always
of
seemed to
the
have like this
box.
eternal stubble. He could never quite grow a full beard, and I think he tried, but he always had like
Oh, he's like my brother.
he always had like it's like a perpetual, it's like it grew for like a week and then just stopped kind of a thing, and he had like patchy spots, and he had like kind of crooked teeth, and
Dahmer reminds me of him. Just he had dark hair.
now that he says it.
I don't know.
But the point is, the guy's a total nerd, and honestly, yeah, if anyone had it coming, generally it was Kenny anyway, because Kenny was usually just an asshat to most of his characters are asshats, and I have a grand story of how he got like every character killed at the party but himself once. But something happened with Mike GMing that night. I'm pretty sure it was a Marvel Superheroes thing, and he died. And Kenny just, I think he had like books in his lap and like a clipboard with his character sheet, and he just did this thing, just picked it up all in one hand, threw that fucker as hard as he could on the floor, and got up. He was, I'm tired of making cannon fodder for your fucking games. He just red beaten. You could just see the blood just draining from his skull as he's just livid. I'm surprised he wasn't like foaming at the mouth, like he just suddenly acquired, just acquired an animalistic trait there. He just lost his shit on him, and Mike, all he could do is, oh, bullshit, Kenny. That was always one of his comment. When he had nothing else to say, pretty much this is way. All right, you're probably right, but I don't care. That was always his response. oh, bullshit. And it was usually followed by a name. Oh, bullshit, Kenny, or bullshit, Kirk, or bullshit, Nick. That was always his, that was just how, that was usually his common response. He even did it to his mom on occasion. He's, oh, bullshit, mother. His mom was another character altogether, because she was like this hardcore, old-school Catholic Italian woman. And holy crap, she was another piece of work, too. So the more I looked, I was like, the apple didn't fall far from the tree with them anyway. But she loved me, but I think she hated him living there, and he was making her nuts. And I know she hated Kitzman, and she hated Chris Vogler. She hated them both. But she loved me.
She had a lot of hate in her.
Well, she was just a hateful, spiteful Italian gal anyway, so...
I didn't like her.
And she always had she had like almost like a stereotyped old school smokes too many cigarettes a day kind of voice, and we'd be playing downstairs and suddenly hear Mike. Mike, why are your fucking friends pissed in the floor in the bathroom again?
So she sounded like Howard Wolowitz's mom. Big Bang Theory.
Because somebody apparently could never piss in the toilet straight on, and she would
Jesus.
always let us hear about it. And she would just lay into us, too, And I mean, it's like I would just be walking there was one night I walked into the door, just into the house, and she's all giving the lowdown. When you take out your privates, you aim properly. I don't want any more of your goddamn friends pissing all over the floor again. And he's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Wow.
I can't even do her voice all night because I would just lose my own. But God, she was such a piece of work. And holy crap, man, she was the most depressing woman I'd ever spoken to. I mean, like I said, she was that hardcore Italian Catholic, and when she got sad about something, the whole fucking house was basically just a black cloud around her. Yeah, and she would get so pissed about things too, because there was one of his friends got married to a gal that she really liked, and she really wanted her to like marry because he was like one of three brothers, I think Mike was. And she got so fucking depressed and let down because she married this guy instead of like one of her three sons kind of a thing. And she's like, I told her she should have married one of my sons, but she wouldn't listen. I'm just sitting there, minding my own business, and she's giving me this rundown like I fucking did it,
Wow.
Wow. I don't think I ever
I'm
had
already-
conversations.
He's like, I'm already dead. I just haven't been buried yet.
Jesus.
This is like, I'm just quoting her directly. I mean,
Wow.
she was such a piece of work. And oh my God, she lost her shit with we happened to be passing through on a game break, coming downstairs into the kitchen, like make sandwiches, or whatever the hell we were doing that night. And she was watching Silence of the Lambs for the first time. And it just happened to be where the dude was dancing in front of the mirror in the skin suit, and she just lost her. Oh my God, I got fucking gross! It's like, he's a she now, and he's got a pussy. She's just giving us. We're all in the kitchen trying to ignore her, and she's shouting at us from the living room about just losing her fucking marbles. So, like I said, the more I hear these stories, the more I'm realizing, the apple really didn't fall too far from the tree with Mike. And she would just drive him up a wall sometimes, because she would just bitch, and he was, all right. And you hear it too, because by like Friday nights when you get there, she's already laying into it, all right, mother. Yes, mother. All right, mother. But eventually, you just start escalating throughout the weekend, and by Sunday, he's like, all right, mother! And she was bitching because they're like out of toilet paper or something. It was like, what the fuck do you want me to do about it, Mom? And he's shouting from upstairs in the attic down to her below. There was some awkward fucking moments in that house with Mom, yeah. Oh, and she was oddly fascinated with like unicorns. That was her other thing I remember about her wall-to-wall unicorn artwork and illustration bit. She had them on like Velvet Elvis type unicorn things, and you remember back in the day, like old folks loved buying them. They were like those shellacked wood slabs that had like artwork kind of like put on them with little clocks in the corner. She had all sorts of that crap, and all of it was unicorns. And that was actually one of the ways I helped kind of, grease the wheels of her goodwill, because I actually found a unicorn painting at a garage sale, and I bought it to give to her. It was like $5 for the kind of karma I'll get out of this with her. I was like, I'm fucking sold, So yeah, and she just thought it was the greatest fucking thing ever that somebody else amongst her pack of fucking friends was good enough to give her, a piece of art. I'm sure she probably did, because she also liked because if you remember, there was that couch and her chair, and that was her chair. It was kind of like your mom and Coke. There was like some things you don't do, and one of them was sit in her chair. If she wasn't in it, you didn't get in that chair, right? So you'd be sitting, and there's like that couch next to her. And there was like that one night, where after a night of playing, I'm like sleeping on the couch. I woke up to her early in the morning, like massaging my, those blonde curly locks of mine. I woke up to that, and that was fucking weird. You got such nice hair. My boys never had nice hair like this.
I've been like, it's been nice knowing you, bro. I'm out.
The crazy shit that woman would do. I just knows that house. It was an interesting place to be at a tender age of 15 through 17-ish.
She sounds like Mac's mom. Yeah, but less charming.
Yeah, Charm and Mike's mom. I don't remember what her name was, but there was nothing charming about her. She was a character, but she was not charming. Oh God, there was this one time too where we had all stayed out overnight at like a girlfriend's house of his, or an apartment, and we were all just like playing RPGs so late we all just basically stayed and crashed at her place. And keep in mind, it was me, and I'm pretty sure Chris Vogler and Kitzman.
How old is
He
he? 25?
was like 26, 27 at that point. And all four of us came walking in one morning after all this, and we drove home. We're ready to, getting ready, just starting our day. And as soon as we walk in, even though all four of us are there with her, Mike's mom just looks him dead in the eye. Did you get yourself a piece of ass? But in a condescending way, like she was humiliated that her Italian son was, having sex out of wedlock kind of a thing. Her 27, 28-year-old son who lives in mom's attic and worked at Long John Silver's. Or no, for a while he was a bus driver, which I don't know if I would have trusted my kids to be in his bus driving, but... And he used to love talking about the fact that he was in the military, but I didn't know this. He didn't tell anybody this, and this was actually something I picked up after the fact, because I think you did, because I didn't, because he was talked about. He was always so proud of him getting through, being part of the military, but it wasn't, and washed out. I don't know if it's the right term in this case, but no, he didn't even do that much. He's a tenderfoot. He couldn't. His feet were like blistering up and falling apart. He couldn't handle the marching. And by the end of it, apparently, and I heard this from a reliable source, one day he just broke down and started crying mid-March and just refused to do anything. So they had to let him go. It was like he just fucking refused.
That's not the story that I have. I wonder if he told me about breaking his leg or something like that.
Maybe he did, but no, it was not breaking his leg. It was because he was a tenderfoot and he couldn't do it. He was just a big fucking puss who couldn't march.
Marines or something, right?
I think so.
The Marines, and he broke his leg.
And I remember him completely bitching about the fact, like 6 months before, because I guess he had like pretty bad teeth for a while, and he did a bunch of dental work right out of high school, and then he joined the Marines or something right afterwards, and got really pissed because apparently, once you join the Marines, they'll do the dental work for free, kind of a thing, and fix your teeth. You got it. So he was like, I remember being like eternally pissed about that. I'm going to save myself tons of cash if I just went to the military before I got my teeth fixed, because they had done it.
They take care of all of that. My my health care was free until I was 22.
And apparently he didn't know that dumbass. 6 months before he got his teeth fixed. And yeah, there you go. He just tender-footed, and yeah, the story was he finally just stopped one day mid-March and just cried and just blatantly refused to move. I guess they had to pick him up and carry him out, and then they just kicked him out. And also kind of, in retrospect too, because he loved talking about the fact that, if you're in boot camp or if you don't want to be in the military, all you got to do is just basically just refuse not to do anything. Is at worst, all they can do is send you home. It kind of is like, dude, you're speaking from experience. That all made sense now, because he seemed to be really in the know on a lot of just weird stuff sometimes. And I also learned another example of how not to be a GM through him by basically becoming a no-show at his own games sometimes. That was one of the last times I actually went to his house, and where it started really pissing me off was he'd have friends from the military or out of town or whatever would come in, and I was there for one night, and we were just getting into a decent game, and I don't remember what it was. It might even been Risk, but whatever we were doing, we were playing a game, and he got a call. One of his friends had just come into town. He's like, all right, you guys, just go ahead and do whatever here. I'll be back. And he just fucking up and left us in his house with his mom downstairs, just stopped mid-game.
You have to get a piece of
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get yourself a piece of ass, Mike!
Yeah.
You and your goddamn friends pissing all over Mike the floor.
Dorito Man did it. No question.
Oh, my God, Dorito Man.
Probably just on your floor.
Yeah, Captain
Right into the
Jizz.
scene.
Before he was either Dorito Man or Captain Jizz.
These would be great NPCs.
Yeah, exactly. Dorito Man and Captain Jizz.
And the angry
We
bartender.
got your next Wrestling Federation characters. Mike's mom as commentator.
Pissing on the goddamn floor. Here comes Captain Jizz, going to piss all over your goddamn floor. Mike!
Oh, it's hard keeping that up. Man. But yeah, Dorito Man was another perfect example of a player what not to be, and to this day, I'm sure Arnie is just as perplexed as how he...
Like that guy from The Simpsons.
He did!
Exactly what I have in my mind.
Yeah, Barney. He looked like a real-life version of Barney. And he was like the guy who basically, I think Arnie had the right theory on this, because as near as we could tell, we think he just kind of came and hung out with Mike. He came and hung out with at Mike's place basically for the sole purpose of getting away from his mom, because like Mike, he lived with his mom, and it sounds like she was a fucking nut job too. But he would come over and he would basically just sleep the whole damn night. He'd get at the table, and about 10 minutes into it, he'd put his hands down, and he'd put his head, and he'd be there the rest of the night. And he became Dorito Boy because that, his trait besides falling asleep was having this bowl of Doritos in front of him. And the guy was so nasty, I refused, because he was always, my chip? I wasn't going to touch where the fuck his fingers had been. This dude was nasty. And there was one night that he had a memorable moment. Captain Dorito had two distinct things about him that I can never forget about him. Well, okay, three if you include that he looked like a real life Barney. One night, we were all I was GMing I think it was a Heroes Unlimited game at my house. Because my folks at that point, my folks, we kind of had a duplex style house, and my folks had moved down. It basically took the whole bottom half. My sisters and I, we kind of had free range upstairs, and there was like a living room area that kind of became, I guess, kind of a conversation room, if you will. There was a nice dining room table and other crap there, and I was hosting games there from time to time. And Dorito Boy was there along with all the others. Same story, 10 minutes into it. We didn't even, none of us really even, we just basically waited till he fell asleep and just carried on without him. It was so natural. You didn't think anything of it anymore. And one night... he's there sleeping, getting his snore on, head in his hands, and I was talking to somebody else somebody else's character's turn was up, and I was asking, so and so, what are you gonna, what is your character gonna do next, kind of a thing. And out of nowhere, with his head down, like so, he just suddenly shot up, it's like he just shot with electricity or whatever. He just looks up. I rip off his head and I eat it for absolutely nothing. And he looks at all, and he just kind of gives us all like this big, serious, wide-eyed look, and then he just kind of went back to putting his head back on the table again. Not another word the rest of the night. So I remember him from that, and I remember him for nearly getting busted jerking off to Mike had a pretty avid porn collection up in his room, and he was always watching his porn, and we're pretty sure. No less than 3 different occasions, because he was always smart enough to keep like an Afghan, which I'm amazed it wasn't it was an Afghan or some kind of blanket covering that he always had. It always seemed kind of suspiciously weird how he had himself pretty much covered over and where he kind of had his hands and whatnot. So we're pretty sure we caught him like fumbling with himself on at least 3 different occasions. And he would get weird over the craziest things with with various characters. Because he had one time, and I'm pretty sure it was like a Ninjas and Super Spies or Heroes Unlimited. It was a Palladium game, because you guys would get where he talks about, he rolled like a perfect score for the physical beauty of his character. And holy shit, did he make sure none of us ever forgot that he had this phenomenally high physical beauty trait, because the whole night, I'm a good-looking son of a bitch. He must have said that like 30 times in the night. I mean, he was just, God, I'm a good-looking son of a bitch. And that was how he said it too, bitch. It was like he really put the B and the belch into that. I'm a good-looking son of a bitch. Yeah, not anymore. So yeah, he had Kenny, who I think those two needed to kiss and make out at least once or twice to figure their shit out. Then there was Chris Vogler. I said Arnie got along with him, but he kind of grated my nerves a lot. And I can't even remember. I'll remember all the reasons why. It was something about him would just get under my nerves. He was also he was a know-it-all. He was our rules lawyer in the day, because he read all the stuff like all the time. So I know that was one of the things that would bug me about him. But I also never forgave him because that son of a bitch gave everybody scabies. I don't think you were attending that particular weekend, because I should have known something was up, because he was all extra itchy that weekend. And he even earned the name Mr. Itchy. Yeah, it was just being there. It was almost, I don't know. And I did keep my distance. Wasn't enough. A couple days later, I started itching, and I had the good sense to go, Mom, you better get me to the doctor. I don't know what these are. He's like, yeah, looks like you got scabies. So so I never forgave him for that either. Because that sumbitch had to have been going on with that for at least a week. And still hadn't gotten himself looked at. He was just sitting there itching all the sores and crap. I know that was in one of the later, kind of like one of the later times where I was starting to phase out too. And I'm pretty sure that was one of the final nails of that coffin, that I wasn't going to be going back anymore. But no, the final, I think one of my final kickers. Yeah, well, yeah, probably not for a lack of trying, I'm sure. Oh my God, I can't even handle a thought. Heebie-jeebies.
It wasn't fucking Kenny, because he only stuck his tiny cock up my ass. And then pissed all over the floor again.
We were all pretty sure it was Kenny doing that. Because he was the only one there consistently enough that it really made sense. Because there were times where she would bitch about it, and some of the regulars weren't there, and versus other times. So I was pretty sure it was Kenny, or maybe even Mike. Well, that bathroom did kind of get a funky smell, and the toilet didn't seem none too safe to be good. Because you're right, I started using the bathroom at Stoysich. across the street for that reason. Because this was like 20 or 14th and Vinton about. And there was the Stoicage was right across the street, and we would always visit like pretty much once a day. That was like our stock up. That and the gas station. Gas station the other end of the block had Jolt, so we were Stoicage. And I don't even remember this. I think it was like some cheap ass, or it might even like a local dude owned this gas station. It wasn't a brand name, but that fucker had Jolt. And holy crap! Back in the day, the first time I had a Jolt, man, my skull was buzzing, my teeth were hurting, and I think we played until like 8 or 9 o'clock the next morning. I mean, and I think it was like the first time I truly felt hungover was waking up after the Jolt crash kicked in that next morning. We all woke up late in the afternoon. And I swear it was like having a hangover. But God, that Jolt, man, that shit rocked my 15-ish, 16-ish-year-old ass back in the day. We were role playing like demons when Mike's mom wasn't yelling at us, or he and Kidsman were having a lover's spat, or one of the myriad other things that we would run into. But I remember my final kicker of when the last night I went. And I realized, I'm too old for this shit. Was when I went there, and there were like 4 or 5 of the guys in the group, and Mike wasn't there, and it was the same story. But apparently, a friend of his, asked him to go out to a movie, and he decided to go see a movie rather than, hang out in his house with all of his friends for our usual roundup. And I was like, now see, this is some bullshit. Pissed me off. So that was my last time going, and yes, but I left with many stories and plenty of ways of how not to be a GM. So yeah, if I ever invited you guys to my place and I'm not there, but all the friends are and such, and you're in there, I would completely understand. You never came back, rightly so. And I assure you, my mom was way cooler than his. My mom would never have been like, Steve! Yeah, my mom's cool. She was a vintage geek, man. But yeah, then my dad, on the other hand, it was because my dad. No, because mom usually just said Steve, but dad, it was Stephen Edward. My dad was the middle name man. And it wasn't like Stephen Edward. No, because my dad would hit this high pitched screechy voice when he'd get upset, and he could wake your ass out of a coma with I was like, Stephen Edward! It was like something like that. And it would make sense if it was like, if I'd murdered somebody or but it's like, it was the littlest infractions. He would act like that. My dad had like no impulse control. No, when he would hit these high-pitched notes, because my dad's a pretty big dude.
Maybe bigger than Steve, maybe a little bigger.
My dad's a little
bigger hair and bigger, bushier beard.
I'm taller, or no, I'm broader. I'm broader shouldered and a little more structured than my dad. But he's a little taller than I am, and he's right. He's about an inch taller than I am. But this wild, crazy, dark curly hair. Well, it's all now silver now. What hair he has left, but he let his fucking curly hair basically afro it up. And at the time, it was this dark Indian curl thing he had going on, and so he looked like he stood about 6'6", but he's a pretty big dude, and he'd have this, he had a pretty normal deep voice until he did this thing when he went into his angry voice, which was this harpy shrill that just, Arnie's right, it was like a voice that just did not fit him. It was the weirdest fucking thing. And we always, and again, because it's not like you could really tell just how much trouble you were in. Because most people tell me you had parents that they used a middle name, you were generally in deep shit. And my dad did that all the time. I was like, I could have forgotten to take out the trash. Stephen Edward! And I was like, yeah, what, Dad? He's like, it's like, the trash isn't out yet! I'll get it now. Just... My dad was a weird, but like I said, my mom was cool. I grew up a mama's boy because of it. My dad and I have a pretty strained relationship at best. Not yet, big surprise, right? But but anyway, So yeah, those were the My Chronicle years. They were, like I said, the good was we got to play in a lot of different types of games, and I got to see a lot of different play styles, and did a lot of different this and that. And he had a granddad who was actually pretty cool. I remember him. His granddad wasn't entirely all there, Choyola, when I'd met him, and Mike would be, he'd drive him to or from the store or whatever, and Mike would say something like, so I picked up a notebook at the store the other day, he was just talking for whatever, and his granddad just totally never understood what Mike was saying half the time. He's like, Mike, you shouldn't do that. It's against the law. He's like, no, I bought the notebook. But yeah, I mean, and his brother was a freaking trip. I loved middle brother. He was cool. He was the one who always insisted on playing Star Trek though, and they had the unfortunate mishap of putting me, this 16-year-old kid, in the captain's chair. I don't know why. And I don't think anyone else wanted to play captain, so they gave it to me, and I just did the stupidest shit with it. Everyone's like, you should really read the captain's manual of etiquette, or I mean, apparently the Star Trek geeks actually wrote a book for this RPG series of how captains and whatnot, or what you're supposed to do, kind of a thing. It was a hardcore geek system, though. I mean, you could tell that a bunch of Trekkie RPG nerds wrote this book, and you don't see them like you used to, but back in the 90s, there were some of these books that they were just fucking hardcore elitist RPG books, and there's one in particular that the name escapes me, but it was a fantasy game system. Basically, it was like engineer porn, because it was, for the most part, it was all about how armor worked properly, and they would have hit points and things that would like go into the thousands. But, their whole theory was, when you have hit points, you could have like 10,000 hit points, but it's like, you can have swords that would do like several hundred points of damage. And the whole idea, I guess, was when you can have a game where you can dictate, a sword doing somewhere between 700 to 725 to 750, those little numbers mattered enough that could be just enough to push it over the edge to beat the other guy. Just total mathematic engineer geek porn, and just I'm really glad those days are gone and those games seem to be gone forever, because they were such elitist pieces of crap. In fact, I need a calculator to figure out the kind of damage I'm doing to people. You're doing it wrong, because they would get into the numbers too. It was like pluses and minuses and some timeses on occasion. So I just did 8,427 points to your 20,000 some odd suit of armor. There's just idiotic stuff like that. Hated it. But that was when, Mike was actually playing and on his game. Or, when Kitzman wasn't. Oh, yeah, Kitzman! The total party kill night. Were you there for that? Yeah, I think he had a couple of them, but the one that always comes to mind, we were playing Heroes Unlimited. His character was playing I'm going to tell this. Kirk, if you look second shelf, second to the right, the white book, perfect. You the man. I'm going to read this so you get what happened here. This is one of those times it's best you read it from the source. This is the flame thing.
I do not believe I was there that night.
This was the night I think Kenny did this, because we were playing at like a new con event, so we couldn't lose our shit at him at the table. Because I'm sure if it was at home, somebody had been kicking his ass that night. Because I noticed he got far more braver doing, just mean shit to people when we were out in public. Because you couldn't, whoop his ass, properly. Let me find it here right quick, because I want to make sure I'm telling this right. It was alter physical structure fire. Pretty much the Human Torch kind of a thing. And he was I think he was like a mutant fox with these fire abilities, if memory serves. Which on paper, it sounded kind of neat. He's like this fire fox ironic thing now. Yeah. 241. So here we go. One of the talents that this particular physical fire item has is what is referred to, it is the very last one. I'm gonna get my glasses on, shit just got serious. Alright, here we go. here it is. So there are 6 particular abilities, most of them pretty common. Throwing fireballs, creating a wall or a circle of flame, or raising the temperature in the room, radiating heat, shit like that, breathing fire. All pretty basic, right? And then they have this one, item number 6, known as the supernova. The supernova is usually a last-ditch attack born in desperation in which the hero overheats and literally explodes. The experience is usually fatal to the exploding super beings. This thing has a reach of about 700 feet, and keep in mind, most the SDC and heroes can be kind of comparable to our BTS characters, where the average, without any kind of like superhero benefits, usually like around 50 SDC is kind of a good starting average for SDC, So this thing within a 100-foot radius of this explosion, it does 10,000 points of damage. So you hear what I'm talking about, what a severe shit thing this is? Yeah. Well, so here's how this game was playing this night. We were all underground in this cavern dealing with supervillains, trying to stop something from happening before the timer fell down, and Kenny was getting his ass kicked by this guy, getting into his hit points, and he decides he's going to set the supernova. Didn't take into account that all of us were in the same room with him, every character that's at that table, right there with him, pretty much standing about as close to him as we were sitting to him, basically, in the middle of all this combat shit. He decides he's gonna go supernova. Doesn't give a fucking thought about the rest of us. Supernovas, right there. Naturally, 10,000 points. Every fucking one of us was obliterated. And I know my guy was no chump, because I was a little bit like the Things. I think I had like the Rocky body. I think, as a matter of fact, I think he was almost kind of a mishmash between the Thing and Mr. Fantastic, where you can do elongated punches. And I think his name was Slugger or something, or like Sergeant Slugger, or something silly, like some silly superhero name like that. And he was fun to play, if for only that reason. These elongated Rocky punches, it was kind of a fun idea to do. And I think I rolled all that just random superhero rolls, and that's what I ended up with. So so he was no slouch. I mean, he could take, I think, when that rock body, you could take like several hundred points of damage if you're when you're fully healed up. So, but the point is, 10,000 points of damage to everybody instantaneously. Everybody in the room just instantaneously. I mean, we're all just fucking incinerated right there. And when this happens, the supernova requires, and I think I don't know if this was in the edition 1, but edition 2, there was a note, it requires 8 melee rounds of concentration and is irreversible after 5. I mean, he did this it was like a one-action immediate thing. I don't know if maybe Mike wasn't looking and Kenny wasn't going to tell him, and none of the rest of us knew this. Whatever the case was going on, he's like, I'm down to my hit points. I'm going supernova right here. All of us get incinerated around him. And after you do this, you have to roll on a percentage table. So, you roll on the following table. And this is what he rolled. Character lives. No permanent damage. Unable to use power for 1d4 weeks. So all the bad guys and good guys around him fucking incinerated, and he gets to walk away from it all. And then basically ends the game right there. That's a Kitsman right there for you. That's a fucking Kitsman. Because they have other ones, like it survives, but you but permanently lose your fire ability. You survive, but you lose all your abilities. Or the more common, it's like, character survives, but the character's power mutates into a completely new one. And you roll under this major ability, and you also roll on the insanity table, so on and so on. So basically the worst that happens to him, his character walks away, can't use his powers a few weeks. End of story. And again, I'm pretty sure every one of us is ready to break our foot off in his ass, but we were there in public, so we couldn't. Fucking asshole. Fucking Kitsman. So that was a fucking Kitsman right there. I think that became a term for all. That was a fucking Kitsman, because he loved doing assholish things sometimes. Oh, and he loved, because Mike, for whatever reason, Mike loved writing shit up and giving it to people. I don't remember what the reason behind this was, think he kind of like in my thing. Sometimes he would write things up and want people to kind of read it, or he'd like do things for their characters and have them read it. Kidsman was a dipshit that this was long back before we had spelling check, and apparently Mike couldn't spell worth a damn, so he was always calling out every one of his spelling errors and these things. Dude was just a dipshit. Did he?